August 2, 1944, 05:18 hours, near Avranches, Normandy. The fog is still hanging low over the hedgerows when the first German fuel truck explodes. A colonne of Wehrmacht supply vehicles crawls east along a narrow Norman road, engines coughing in the damp morning air, canvas-covered trucks, half-tracks stacked with ammunition, field kitchens rattling behind them. The drivers are tired. Most haven't slept in 2 days. They believe they are retreating from the American breakout. They believe the front is still behind them. Then the hedgerow on their right erupts in muzzle flashes. A 75 Michel slams into the lead truck. The cab disintegrates. Fuel ignites. Flames leap 30 feet into the morning sky. Machine gun fire rakes the colonne from both sides. American voices shout commands in the darkness. Someone screams, "They're behind us." The German colonne panics. Drivers slam brakes. Vehicles jackknife into the ditch. Men spill into the fields, fumbling with rifles. A half-track tries to turn around and is hit square in the engine block. It burns where it stops. And in less than 4 minutes, the entire German supply column is destroyed. Not at the front, not at the flanks, but from the rear. Because General George S. Patton's Third Army is already somewhere it was never supposed to be. 2 weeks earlier, German Panzer commanders had believed they finally had the Americans trapped. Normandy had become a killing ground. The bocage hedgerows formed a maze of natural fortresses. Every field was a bunker, every lane a kill zone. For 7 weeks after D-Day, the Americans bled for every mile. German officers called it the Green Hell. They believed this was where the Americans would be broken. They believed Patton would be slowed like everyone else. They were wrong. On July 25, 1944, Operation Cobra shattered the German line south of St. Lo. The American Air Force pounded the German front with thousands of bombers. Entire divisions were crushed under collapsing earth. When the dust cleared, the German line was gone. And waiting behind that breach was Patton. On August 1st, his Third Army was activated. And it did not advance. It erupted. At dawn, armored columns surged through the gap at Avranches. Sherman tanks roared across fields still smoking from the bombing. Infantry clung to the sides of half-tracks. Engineers bulldozed roadblocks aside without stopping. Patton stood on the roadside in his polished helmet and ivory-handled pistols, watching the flow of steel pour through the breach. He turned to his staff. "Now we run." The German command had no idea what was coming. Their intelligence reports still showed American forces grinding forward hedge by hedge. They believed Patton would take weeks to reorganize. They believed the Americans needed time to build supply lines. Instead, Patton ignored the map. He ignored the doctrine. He ignored the idea of a front line. His tanks drove day and night. They drove through fields, through forests, through towns still flying Nazi flags. They bypassed resistance. They left pockets of German troops isolated and surrounded. They cut roads, seized bridges, captured fuel dumps. Patton wasn't pushing the Germans back. He was getting around them. On August 2nd, German General Heinrich Eberbach, commander of Panzergruppe West, was still convinced the Americans were struggling near the hedgerows. His divisions were redeploying east toward Falaise to stabilize the front. Fuel columns moved in daylight. Staff cars drove unescorted. Rear area command posts operated as if they were safely behind the lines. No one believed the Americans could already be there. Then the radio messages began. Supply convoy destroyed near Mortain. Enemy armor sighted at Vire. American tanks on the Avranches road. At first, German Chateaubriand officers assumed it was reconnaissance. Then a Panzer regiment near Le Mans reported something impossible. American tanks were moving west to east, behind German lines, toward Paris. By the afternoon of August 2nd, Patton's spearheads had driven over 100 kilometers in less than 48 hours. They were no longer breaking through German defenses. They were racing through German rear areas. They were cutting the arteries of the German army. Fuel depots were captured intact. Ammunition dumps were overrun before guards could even burn them. Panzer divisions began reporting empty tanks. Artillery units reported no shells. Food columns vanished. The German army was running out of everything. And no one knew where Patton was. Only where he had already been. In a chateau near Alençon, General Eberbach stared at a map now riddled with red grease pencil marks. American units were appearing in places that made no sense. Road junctions, river crossings, rail hubs. Every German withdrawal route was being severed. A staff officer entered the room pale-faced. Another supply column destroyed, Herr General. They came from the west. Eberbach froze. From the west? That was impossible. The front was in the west. Unless... He walked to the map, studied the American advance arrows, and slowly the realization began to take shape. Patton wasn't pushing. He was encircling. On the roads of Normandy, German soldiers now looked over their shoulders as much as ahead. Every hedgerow could hide American tanks. Every village might already be occupied. Columns moved only at night, and even then they were hunted. American armored patrols prowled the countryside like wolves. They struck convoys. They ambushed chateau cars. They cut telephone lines. They captured officers who still thought the front was miles away. Some German units marched straight into American roadblocks without firing a shot. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. By August 5th, Patton's tanks were approaching Laval. By August 6th, they were nearing Le Mans. By August 7th, German panzer divisions were trying desperately to turn around and face an enemy already in their rear. The entire German operational map of Normandy had collapsed. And inside German headquarters, one sentence was being whispered again and again. Patton is behind us. But the true disaster was still forming. Because as German commanders scrambled to face Patton's runaway advance, they were walking straight into a trap that would soon close at Falaise. A trap that would destroy an entire army. And they were already too late to stop it. August 7, 1944, 1440 hours, Le Mans, France. The city is burning. Black smoke rises from the railway yards. A fuel depot on the southern edge of town roars like a furnace. Civilians huddle in doorways as American Sherman tanks grind through the streets, crushing abandoned German motorcycles beneath their tracks. The stars and stripes flies from the cathedral. Le Mans has fallen. And with it, the entire German Panzer command structure in western France. Inside a commandeered school building on the outskirts of the city, German officers sit in stunned silence. Maps are spread across desks. Radios crackle non-stop. Runners sprint in and out of rooms carrying handwritten reports. Every message says the same thing. American armor everywhere. American infantry in the rear. American roadblocks on every major highway. One officer removes his glasses and rubs his eyes. "This is not possible," he whispers. But it is. Le Mans was supposed to be a rear area headquarters, a logistics hub, a command center for Panzergruppe West. Instead, it has become a frontline battlefield without warning. Or worse, a battlefield already lost. General Heinrich Eberbach arrives in a staff car just minutes before American tanks roll into the outskirts of town. His driver skids into a courtyard as artillery rounds land nearby. Eberbach steps out into chaos. Burning vehicles, fleeing clerks, telephone wires hanging from shattered poles. An adjutant runs toward him, breathless. "Herr General, American armor is approaching from 3 directions. We are being surrounded." Eberbach looks east, looks west, then south. Every escape route is already under fire. Patton's army has not only reached Le Mans, it has wrapped around it. For weeks, German commanders believed they still controlled the tempo of the battle. They believed their panzer divisions could withdraw, regroup, and counterattack. But Patton has removed the option to retreat. The roads are gone. The bridges are seized. The fuel is burning in captured depots. Entire German columns now sit abandoned on the roadside, out of gasoline, their crews walking east on foot. Some try to fight their way out. Most never make it. At German 7th Army headquarters, General Paul Hauser finally understands what has happened. His formations are no longer facing a breakthrough. They are inside a collapse. Patton's Third Army has driven so far and so fast that the German front line no longer exists in any meaningful way. There is only movement, panic, improvisation. German units are now reacting, not maneuvering. They are chasing shadows. And the shadows are American tank columns already racing toward the Seine. On August 8th, Hitler himself intervenes. From his bunker in East Prussia, he orders a massive counterattack at Mortain, Operation Luttich, a last gamble to cut Patton's supply lines and sever the American breakout. Panzer divisions are pulled together for one final blow. Panthers, Tigers, elite SS units. The order is clear. Strike west, drive to Avranches, cut Patton off. Destroy the Third Army. But Patton already knows. Ultra-intercepts have revealed the plan. American reconnaissance units are already watching German columns assemble. And when the panzers roll forward at dawn, they do not find an exposed American flank. They find a wall of artillery. They find fighter-bombers screaming down from the clouds. They find American tank destroyers waiting in hull-down positions. The counterattack dies in the hedgerows. And with it, Germany's last chance to stop the breakout. Now the trap is closing. North of Patton, British and Canadian armies are pushing south from Caen. South of them, Patton's armor is racing east. Between them lies the German 7th Army and 5th Panzer Army. More than 100,000 men. Thousands of vehicles. Hundreds of tanks. All trying to escape through a narrowing gap near a small Norman town called Falaise. The German soldiers on the roads can feel it. The sky belongs to the Allies. Every daylight movement is suicide. Columns hide in forests by day and move only at night. Wounded men ride on the hoods of trucks. Horses pull artillery where trucks have run out of fuel. SS units push refugees off the road at gunpoint. It is no longer an army. It is a flood of men trying to outrun destruction. On August 12th, Patton's lead elements reach Argenton. His tanks halt on the edge of the town. Beyond it, the Falaise corridor is visible. And on those roads, the German army is pouring through. This is the moment. This is where the jaws can snap shut. Patton requests permission to push north, to close the pocket, to finish the war in France in a single blow. He waits for the order. In German headquarters, officers watch their last escape route shrinking by the hour. They know what is coming. They know what Patton has done. And they know the man who outpaced them is now waiting to destroy them. But the decision that follows will change everything. And the window to escape is closing fast. August 13, 1944, 06:10 hours, Argenton, France. The morning sky is gray and heavy with rain. American Sherman tanks sit nose to nose along the southern edge of town, engines idling, crews drinking coffee from dented tin cups. Beyond them, the road to Falaise curves north through rolling farmland. And on that road, the German army is fleeing. Columns stretch for miles, trucks, horse carts, Panthers with empty fuel tanks being towed by half-tracks, wounded men lying on tarps in the backs of Opel Blitzes, officers standing in the road trying to impose order where none remains. They are running through the last open door. And Patton can see it. General George S. Patton stands beside his command car, binoculars pressed to his eyes. Mud clings to his boots. His helmet is splattered with rain. He watches the enemy move. They are exposed. They are vulnerable. And they are trapped. All he needs is permission. Patton turns to his operations officer. "Get me Bradley." General Omar Bradley answers from his headquarters to the south. Patton does not waste time. "My armor is at Argenton. I can drive to Falaise today. We close the pocket. We end the war in France." There is a pause on the line. Bradley knows the opportunity. But he also knows the risk. British and Canadian forces are pushing south from Caen. The front lines are blurred. The maps are outdated. Friendly fire is a real danger. Bradley hesitates. Then he gives the order. "Hold at Argenton." Patton slams the phone down. He stares north. The road to Falaise is open, and the enemy is pouring through it. In German columns, the word spreads fast. The Americans have stopped. Some dare to hope. Others know better. They can hear the artillery. They can hear the engines of fighter-bombers circling above the clouds. They know the road will not stay open for long. On August 14th, the British 1st Canadian Army captures Falaise. On August 16th, they push south toward Trun. American units move north from Argenton. The jaws begin to close. But not fast enough. Inside the pocket, hell has arrived. Allied aircraft hunt from dawn to dusk. Typhoons and thunderbolts scream down the roads, firing rockets into columns packed bumper to bumper. Explosions flip trucks into ditches. Panthers burn where they stall. Horses are torn apart. Men dive into fields and lie face down as bombs tear the earth around them. The roads become graveyards. Steel, flesh, fire, smoke. German officers try to restore order. They form Kampfgruppen from fragments of shattered divisions. They send Tiger tanks to hold crossroads. They stack wrecked vehicles across roads to block pursuit. They burn maps. They destroy radios. They shoot deserters. Nothing stops the collapse. By August 18th, the gap between Chambois and Trun is less than 5 kilometers wide. Inside, more than 50,000 German soldiers are trapped. They can see the hills on the far side. Freedom is so close they can taste it. They charge at night. They crawl through fields. They wade through rivers. They abandon everything. Guns, vehicles, wounded comrades. Some make it. Most do not. At Chambois, American and Polish troops fight house to house against desperate SS counterattacks. The town changes hands multiple times in a single day. Corpses pile in the streets. Burning tanks block intersections. A Polish armored unit plants its flag on Hill 262, overlooking the escape route. From there, they fire down into the K.O.L.N. in Yeru below. The corridor becomes a killing funnel. On August 20th, the pocket finally closes. What remains of the German 7th Army is destroyed. More than 10,000 vehicles are wrecked. Over 40,000 men are captured. Another 20,000 lie dead along the roads of Normandy. The once proud panzer divisions are reduced to marching columns of prisoners. The German army in France is broken. And in the aftermath, German officers speak openly for the first time. They do not blame the Air Force. They do not blame Hitler. They do not blame the lack of fuel. They blame Patton. They say he moved like lightning. They say he was everywhere. They say he turned their retreat into a rout. They say he came from behind. In a captured Château headquarters, an American intelligence officer flips through abandoned German maps. On one of them, a handwritten note stands out. A simple sentence scrawled in pencil. Patton is already here. But the war is not over. The road to Paris is open. And Patton is already moving. August 23, 1944, 18:30 hours, outside Chartres, France. The sun is sinking behind a curtain of dust kicked up by thousands of moving vehicles. The road is a river of steel flowing east, Sherman tanks, half-tracks, jeeps, fuel trucks, ambulances, artillery tractors. Men ride on fenders. Some sleep standing up, swaying with the motion of the K-A-L-N-N-A. Patton's army has not slowed. It has accelerated. For the first time since the breakout, German rear areas no longer exist. Every town east of the Seine is now a front line. Every bridge is a target. Every crossroads is contested. And everywhere German officers look, they see the same thing. American armor. American flags. American columns appearing where no one believed they could be. In German headquarters near Troyes, a Panzer colonel stares at a captured American operations map. The arrows run in thick red lines straight toward the German border. There are no pauses, no consolidation phases, no defensive lines, just momentum. He turns to his adjutant. "This is not an army," he says quietly. "This is a pursuit." After the destruction of the Falaise Pocket, the German command structure in France ceases to function as a coordinated force. What remains are fragments. Kampfgruppen built from survivors. Rear echelon units turned into infantry overnight. Training battalions thrown into combat with no heavy weapons. Patton's advance has turned retreat into flight. And flight into collapse. At Melun, American engineers capture a bridge across the Seine before German demolition teams can destroy it. Patton crosses within hours. At Sens, French resistance fighters seize the railway yards before German troops can escape. At Auxerre, an entire German battalion surrenders to a single American armored platoon. The psychological effect is as devastating as the physical. German soldiers no longer believe they can outrun the Americans. They no longer believe they can reorganize. They only believe in survival. Patton drives forward in his command car, standing up in the open hatch, goggles pulled low against the dust. He waves columns through intersections. He shouts at traffic police. He stops tanks to point them down side roads. Every delay is a personal insult. Every slowdown a threat to momentum. On August 25th, Paris rises. Resistance fighters seize police stations and government buildings. Barricades go up in the streets. German General Dietrich von Choltitz prepares to defend the city, but he knows the truth. He has no army. He has no fuel. He has no future. When American and Free French forces enter the city, Parisians flood the streets, climbing onto tanks, throwing flowers, kissing soldiers through tears. The capital is free, and Patton is already racing past it. East of Paris, German officers attempt one final reorganization. They draw a defensive line along the Meuse. They plan to regroup near Metz. They believe the Americans must stop to resupply. They believe Patton has finally outrun his logistics. They believe the laws of war must eventually reassert themselves. Patton has other ideas. Captured German generals later described the same moment of realization. They expected pauses. They expected breathing space. They expected the Americans to consolidate their gains. Instead, Patton never stopped. Every time they thought they had escaped, he was already there. At a command conference in early September, a German corps commander finally speaks the words no one wants to say. We are no longer retreating. We are being hunted. But even as German lines disintegrate, one more reckoning waits ahead. Because beyond the Meuse lies the German border. And beyond that, the Reich itself. And there, Patton will meet the resistance Germany has been saving for last. Type Continue to generate the next section. Section 5. The Man Who Was Already There. September 3, 1944, 07:45 hours, near Verdun, France. The fog lifts slowly off the Meuse River, revealing a column of American tanks nosing their way across a captured bridge. Infantry jog alongside, rifles slung, boots slapping wet planks. Engineers check for demolition charges. Military police wave traffic through with red flags. Patton's Third Army has reached the old killing fields of 1916. Verdun. The name alone still echoes in the memory of Europe. But this time, the German line does not exist. In the ruins of a farmhouse outside the city, a group of captured German officers sits under guard. Their uniforms are torn. Their boots are caked with mud. One of them, a major from a Panzer division shattered at Falaise, stares at the road. He watches American vehicles pass. Endless. Unstoppable. He shakes his head. We thought we were retreating faster than they could follow, he says quietly. But Patton was already there. This is what German commanders will remember. Not a single battle. Not a single defeat. But a presence. An enemy who did not move like an army. Who did not wait for orders to filter down. Who did not pause to dress lines and form fronts. Patton moved like weather. He arrived without warning. And once he appeared, nothing could slow him. In the days that follow, the Third Army crosses the Moselle. They punch through at Nancy. They seize Metz's outer defenses. They push toward the German frontier. Everywhere they go, German units scatter. Some fight. Most run. All know the name. Captured diaries tell the same story. Patton again. Patton everywhere. No escape from Patton. German Panzer commanders, men who had fought in Poland, France, Russia, and North Africa, admit what they had never admitted before. They had never faced an enemy who moved this way, who thought this way, who refused to be where the map said he should be. Even as fuel shortages finally slow the Third Army near the German border, the damage is already done. The German Western Front is shattered. France is lost. Belgium is opening. The road to the Rhine is now inevitable. And the name that German commanders whisper in every Chateau bunker, every Chateau car, every Chateau map room is the same. Patton. Years later, in post-war interrogations, German generals are asked when they knew the campaign in France was lost. Some say Falaise. Some say Paris. Some say the Seine. But many give the same answer. They knew the moment their supply columns were ambushed from the rear. They knew when their retreat routes vanished. They knew when their maps stopped making sense. They knew when they realized the Americans were not in front of them. They were behind them. Because by the time German Panzer commanders understood what was happening, Patton was already there. And